Welcome to 21st Sports recap and reaction of the Dallas Cowboys at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in their Week 10 matchup played November 15, 2015. We're going to go over the scores and the stats and give our breakdown and analysis. And this was as low scoring as it gets, as it was all field goals until the fourth quarter. But in the first quarter, Dan Bailey had a 42-yard field goal with about 4 minutes still left in the first to make it 3-0 Dallas over Tampa Bay. Then in the second quarter, on the next possession of the game, Connor Barth hit a 52-yard field goal to tie this one up at 3 apiece, and that was just less than 10 seconds into the second quarter. And on the very next possession, the Cowboys get another field goal, this time a 53-yarder by Dan Bailey with about 10.5 left before halftime to put the Cowboys back in the lead by 3 with the score 6-3. So that was the score at halftime. And as I said, those field goals came on back-to-back possessions. The Cowboys got a field goal, then the Buccaneers got a field goal, then the Cowboys get a field goal. We had a couple of missed field goals then by each team, as each team missed one in the first half. And before the half came to a close, Heath intercepted Winston when the Buccaneers were in field goal range. But it was 6-3 at halftime. And in the second half, nobody scored in the third quarter until deep into the fourth even. We actually saw Heath get his second interception of the game with about 6 minutes left in this game. But the Cowboys went 3 and out, so the Buccaneers would get the ball back after the punt. They had it near midfield at their own 44, and they got down to the goal line, and it was 3rd and goal on the 4, and Jameis Winston fumbles the ball, but the defense was called for holding. It was actually Heath who had the 2 interceptions who was called for defensive holding, and so now it would be 1st and goal on the 1. Winston fakes the handoff to the muscle hamster Doug Martin, and he takes it on the end around, kind of like almost like a bootleg, and it was a touchdown, the first touchdown of this game. Connor Barth adds the extra point, and now the Buccaneers were in the lead for the first time in this game, 10-6, with less than a minute left to play. So the Cowboys would get the ball after the touchdown. They ended up getting it on their own 44. So they actually, muffed the catch on the kick, but there was an unnecessary roughness call against Tampa, so they had it on their own 44. Castle gets it to McFadden. He picks up 11. He spikes the ball. Now 2nd and 10 from the 45 of Tampa. In Tampa territory, Castle airs it out, and there's still half a minute left. He goes for Dez Bryant, and McDougal comes down with it in the end zone as he intercepts Castle. And all that was left to do was for Winston to take a knee in the victory formation as the Buccaneers come from behind. The fourth quarter comeback by Jameis Winston and the Bucs, and they're now 4-5 on the season, 2-3 at home. The Cowboys now fall to 2-7, 1-3 on the road. They've lost 7 straight since losing Tony Romo, and this is their biggest losing streak this century and their biggest losing streak in over 2 decades. So it's not looking good for the Cowboys, and this one might just put them out of contention. Mathematically they're still in it, but they really can't get Romo back quick enough, and it's still going to be a couple weeks at least. And we'll look at the stats here. They couldn't get it going on the ground. That was really the thing for the Cowboys. They could not get the ground game going. The Bucs did get some production out of their ground game, not big numbers. Really, Mike Evans had a pretty big day stat-wise. And Winston, despite the 2 interceptions, and he did almost have a 3rd turnover, though that was overturned because of the holding penalty, and he does get that rushing touchdown. But Jameis Winston, he led him on the fourth quarter comeback, and that's the thing. He came up clutch when he needed to, and especially after that fumble, for him to bounce back on the very next play and score the touchdown to go ahead really shows some leadership. But 22 for 39 for Winston, 264 passing yards, 0 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, though he did have the 3 carries for 3 yards and the rushing touchdown. And Doug Martin, 18 carries for 63 yards, Sims had 5 carries for 18 yards. Martin also had 4 receptions for 40 yards, which gave him 103 total yards on the day. Sims also had 2 catches for 13 yards, as that would give him 31 total yards. And Mike Evans, 8 receptions for 126 yards to be the game's leading receiver. And for the Cowboys, Matt Castle, 19 for 30, 186 yards, no touchdowns, 1 interception. Darren McFadden, 17 carries for just 32 yards. He also had 3 receptions for 26 yards, which gave him 58 total yards on the game. And Dez Bryant, 5 receptions for 45 yards. Jason Witten, 5 receptions for 42 yards. And for the kickers, Connor Barth, 1 for 2 on the field goals, 1 for 1 on the extra point. Daniel Bailey, 2 for 3 on the field goals, did not attempt an extra point. And then we look at the defense. And for Tampa Bay, Lavonte David had a sack. Quan Alexander had a sack. Golston had a sack. McDougal had the interception. And Johnson forced the fumble. And for the Cowboys, Crawford had a sack. And Lawrence had a sack. And Heath had those 2 interceptions. And we look at the first downs, 23 first downs for the Buccaneers, 12 first downs for the Cowboys. On third down, the Bucs were 4 for 11, 36% converted, and the Cowboys 4 for 13, just 30% converted. Total net yards, 330 for Tampa Bay, 216 for Dallas. On the ground, 84 net rushing yards for the Buccaneers, 42 net rushing yards for the Cowboys. Through the air, 246 netted for the Bucs, as Winston was sacked twice, losing 18 yards total. And for the Cowboys, 174 netted yards through the air, as Castle was sacked 3 times, losing 12 yards on those 3 sacks. Look at the penalties. 7 penalties against the Buccaneers for 62 yards. 6 penalties against the Cowboys, 65 yards. So 1 less penalty, 3 more penalty yards. And, of course, that big penalty at the end that negated that fumble that led to the touchdown. As both teams had 1 fumble, but they did not lose the fumble on either side. And in the red zone, the Buccaneers 1 for 1, 100%. The Cowboys 0 for 1, 0%. The Cowboys actually had the ball more, 30 minutes and 4 seconds to 29 minutes, 56 seconds, which is about as even as it can be. It's just an 8-second difference there. But yeah, a low-scoring game, all defense in this one. And despite the turnovers, and this really sucks for Heath. I mean, he came up with those 2 big interceptions, and they did not lead to any points. And instead, he ends up being remembered as the guy who got called for that holding that led to the game-winning fourth-quarter comeback touchdown by Jameis Winston. As the Bucs win this one, it's kind of an ugly game. The Buccaneers win 4-5. And they're still in the mix for potentially they're alive on a wild card hunt. Of course, they got a tough division there. The Panthers still undefeated, and of course the Falcons as well, and the Cowboys in the East. You know, it's that division is wide open still, but as they keep losing games, and you know we see with the Eagles and the Giants and the Redskins are all still in the hunt. The Cowboys, the window of opportunity is closing pretty quick on them, as they are not able to win any games without Tony Romo. And we see just how valuable Tony Romo is to the Cowboys. Also, you got to wonder, would things be different if they had a running game there, if they had stuck with DeMarco Murray? But we'll never know. But let me know what you think in the comments section below. Definitely interested to read your thoughts and opinions. Thank you very much for listening. It's greatly appreciated. I hope you're having a good day and had a great weekend and enjoyed all the sports.